Freedom is a choice. Joy is a choice. Yeah. And success should support the life that you want rather than consume it.
Welcome to the Economy Creators Podcast and Radio Show on KFRED Work Life Balance Radio. I'm your host, Reiss Farias. This is where we spotlight real stories of entrepreneurs and creators building their U-shaped economy around their unique interests, talents, and experiences. This podcast is part of a larger space called Economy Creators. I'm editing and publishing the Economy Creators Anthology, where I highlight and share the stories of 11 entrepreneurs and creators. Each one is in different phases of their entrepreneurial journey, and each has an incredible story to tell. You'll get to meet and learn more about each of these economy creators on this show. Plus, learn some tips from those who are making it happen. If you would like to be on the show, want to learn more about the anthology or any of the co-authors, or simply have a question about being an economy creator, just reach out to me. I'm here to help you in any way that I can. And if you're an economy creator, I invite you to reach out and apply to be a guest. I love meeting and spotlighting economy creators. Welcome to Economy Creators, and today my guest is Andre Alexander, and he is the Freedom Architect. But this is pretty cool. He says he works with businesses and owners and executives who feel like success is costing more than they expected. He helps them redesign their business so success supports the life they actually want to live. And Andre, this is the definition to me of an economy creator. This is creating an economy around you, a U-shaped economy, YOU. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I love to take you back to childhood. That's how we grew up. We grew up free. We were allowed to roam. We were allowed to be part of a community. Our parents didn't really worry about us too much. That's like me from the age of 2 going forward. Like family home is still there. My sister still lives there, that type of stuff. So we always had that sense of community and doing things together, getting support, which is something that a lot of people seem to have lost out on recently, like become too isolated. And then I was never pressured by my parents, thankfully, for studies. None of us were, actually. We all did well enough. Um, and then our secondary school system here is, well, in the Caribbean, is one where you have to pass certain exams to move to another level. Right. And I eventually didn't pass well enough at the secondary school level to go to university, which is the first time I got asked the question, so what are you going to do now? And that was from my dad. And I had like absolutely no answer. And no plan. I used to help him with his books and do his taxes. I did well in school, and he was like, well, why not try that? So I went to Canada to study, and I chose to be more on the costing, budgeting, strategic planning side, which once I left corporate, eventually let me get into consultants and be my own boss, having my own office, working from home kind of stuff. But so corporate had its time, right? It taught you the discipline, it taught you all the things you need to not want your life to be, because there is a place for hard work, there is a place for hustle. Right? But if it consumes you, then what's the point? And then when I started the consulting and that type of stuff, I worked with some charter companies. They were always stressed, like literal everything is a stress. And they were slaves to like their phone and to always being on. And I'm totally reverse. I hate my phone. I eventually got to this particular evolution of me through the advice of a Tony Robbins coach. And prior to him, another mentor had told me, I should be selling freedom. And I didn't understand what he meant. Like, who sells freedom? And then the Tony Robbins coach, about 8 months later, said, you should be helping people to live the way you do without having to move to Bergen.
This is so good because you bring a Caribbean perspective to success, is what you say. And I think that that is something that what you just said, you bring that perspective without requiring them to move there. Because not everybody can move there, nor do you want everybody there because otherwise it'll change it. So, what is this Caribbean perspective that you bring to success?
It just seems to be our culture, right? Success is meant to be enjoyed now, right? Not deferred to some mythical period in the future. Yeah. And that's where the major shift is. Sort of the Western business world teaches you to hustle, hustle, hustle. Everything is about the hustle and everything is about acquisition, right? So success is societal in outlook, right? Is material in outlook, but very little intrinsic or internal benefit, man. And words like joy and freedom, life, presence, all those things are not given any weight. Like those somehow or the other magically appear when you make more money. But I think when we look around, we see, well, that's a myth, right? That's a conditioning that we've been given. And it doesn't work that way, right? Freedom is a choice. Happiness is a choice, right? Having a great relationship is a choice. Being healthy is a choice. All those things are choices, right? So if you don't see that and you don't start to think that way, then you will stay in the old way of doing things, or let's say the societal way of doing things. And at some point, do you continue living that way or do you ask a different question?
Yeah, I love that you point out that all of those things, everything that we're being in this moment, we are choosing to be, right? And so if we're upset about something, we're choosing to be upset about something. If we feel like a doormat, we're choosing to feel like a doormat. If we're feeling successful, we're choosing to feel successful. So when you present that concept to people, do they buy it right away, or does it take some explanation and time?
Sometimes what I get is it's easy for you to say that, right?
Yeah, look where you live. It's so easy to say that, right?
Yeah, but if you look at what's available to you versus what's available to me, right? We choose to enjoy what we have, right? You choose to hustle and acquire. You may not think that that's your choice, right? But you'll only figure it out if you step back and question it. One of the things that, let's say, the modern society has successfully done by agenda is to keep you so busy that you don't think about those things, right? So if you're always in constant hustle and then your nervous system is always stressed, where do you get the time to actually step away? Because if you don't think you can, you never will. And even when you supposedly go home to relax, you're still switched on. If somebody calls, you have to answer it. When your home should be a sanctuary, right? That should be where you're recharging. If you have a family, that's where you should be spending family time. Why are you allowing business to invade that, or career to keep invading that?
Yeah.
Your choice. And if you are afraid to lose your job, then are you in the right job? Right? Why don't you question that? Right?
Yeah.
Success. What is it that you really want from life? That's the question you should be asking. And when I ask that question, very few people can actually give me a good answer.
Right. Yeah. Well, and this is one of the things that I take people through with creating their U-shaped economy because you w- many people think that an economy is just one thing, the thing that brings them money. But an economy is really a balanced life because I used to have my economy used to be around gymnastics, and that burned me out pretty fast. And then I created it around me. And, there are things in my economy that are very essential to recharging me, like my horses, for instance. I go to the barn every single day because I love them and because that it changes my energy and the it gives me the outlook, the energy, the balance that I need to do the rest of the stuff that I want to do inside of my economy, write books, do podcasts, do all these things. That that happens because I give myself that time every day to recharge. And so is this what you're kind of finding is that people need to balance everything out?
I tend to push back against the word balance, and primarily because we've been conditioned again, and words are power, right? When you hear the word balance, you tend to always hear work-life balance. Which one comes first? Work in that concept, right?
In that concept, yeah.
Right. And that's what you always hear, and that's how people are being conditioned. So when they think of balance, it tends to be still work first, right? Life. Let's see if we could put a little more life into work or at the end of work at some point. But then if after work you are drained and you have no energy, what life are you going to put back into it? Right?
Mhm.
If you go home and you're drained, what is your significant partner going to get? What are your children going to get if you have any? What's your health going to get?
Yeah, I agree with you completely, 100%. Yeah.
I use the term life first, right? You can design your business to give you life. Matter of fact, wasn't that what the business was supposed to be in the first place? Right? Your career was there to give you life. When you started out, the idea was I wanted to do this. I wanted my life to look a particular way. Which is always simpler when you're in your early 20s and stuff. I do agree. But what made you lose track of that? Right?
Mhm.
And are you regretting it? A lot of people don't like to face the regret, but in many cases, they are regretting it. And then some people then fall into the trap that I didn't make a change soon enough. Now I have a spouse and a family. Now it's even harder to make a switch.
Yep.
Right. But the sad part is men especially are being conditioned to be the pillar, you know, the the big wall that can bear everything and hold everything. Don't need support from anybody. Well, even a wall has to have support, right? Yeah. Nobody can stand in isolation. And what I find maybe the hardest for people to seem to get is you're being conditioned to believe that you're doing everything for your family's benefit, right? For the well-being of those you love. But it's you making the decision alone. You very seldom ask them. Have you asked your spouse how he or she feels about what you're doing and your work and what is taking from the relationship? Have you asked your kids? And 95% of the kids prefer to have a parent who is present and around for them to have fun with than one who just provides.
Yep.
Yeah. You could ask them about their iPhone, their whatever, right? But somehow they could always tell you about the time that dad came home, or mom came home, or came to my gymnastics event, or my soccer game, or my whatever. So when you sacrifice those things, they could never come back because your children already getting older, right? Things going to change for them. They're going to become more estranged with a relationship with a parent who's hardly ever there, or when there, not present. And then we won't even get into the relationship chat with your significant other because when it starts to deteriorate, it's the hardest thing to bring it back.
Right. So let me ask you this. Speaking of family, what did your family say when you said, "We're moving to the Caribbean, we're staying here, we're living this life now"? What happened?
The island I was born on is called Trinidad, which is further south of Antigua. Much bigger island, more fast paced. It's like one of the US or Canadian cities. So I went from Trinidad to another Caribbean island, and from that Caribbean island to this one, right? It's not hard to see the patterns. It's more like it's easier to see the patterns when you're not in it, you know? And I guess that's one of the issues too, because you're so in it, you normalize it, and people tell you this is normal.
Yeah. So when you look at it that way, when you were working for these larger companies, still in the Caribbean though, did you feel the pressure to be faster paced and to be sucked into that type of culture?
Yes, but not to understate it. I love to work, right? Just like you just said you do as well, right? Because if you don't, then your mental faculties fall by the wayside, right? So yes, I love to work, but I love to work by design and in pattern and in flow, right? So the companies still, I'm sure I would have been the higher pressure companies because they were the larger companies. You had deadlines that couldn't be missed and this, that, and the other, which was great from the perspective of you learn certain disciplines, right? But I view that as the type of training that I needed, let's say, to be able to do what I was able to eventually do. No. So I never tell anyone how to go into those companies, but know why you're going and what is it you want to get out of it. Then you can use the experience of working in corporate to move you in the direction you want to go.
Yep, I agree with that, and so then there's a self-image portion that shifts too. So when somebody finally asks themselves, "What is it that I really do want?" And then they start moving in that direction, they're actually shifting how they see themselves in that way, right? So what have you noticed with yourself and your clients is how they shift how they see themselves through this process?
I'll take myself out of that because in truth, I'll never personally pass through a lot of what I see clients going through, right? I'll give a quick example for why I say that. I wasn't aware of it until my last job, which was the one in Antigua. When I resigned, the manager called me, well, the CEO, and he called me at the time and he said, I should have seen that coming. And I was like, well, I didn't know it was coming. Opportunity came up and it made sense. He asked me, you realize you never stay more than 2 years anywhere. And then when I looked at it, it just hit me like, wow, I wasn't even aware of that. So that's why
Freedom was built in, huh? Freedom was built into your mentality for sure.
there's a self-worth component to it as well. Right? If you don't know your worth, people will always take advantage of it. Right? And if you've led yourself to believe that you are at the best level you're going to get wherever you're at, right? And that no other opportunities will provide you, whether it's the income, the lifestyle, whatever it is, then you're going to stay and keep being a doormat. And the worst part is the more you stay and the more you accept, it's more of the doormat you become.
Yeah, it's true. It's a decision, isn't it?
Yeah. So at what point is it enough? At what point are you going to say enough is enough?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's so true. So, what are some of the assets that you feel like you've really drawn on? I mean, we talked about it sounds like freedom is built into you. That's just who you are, free at the essence, right? And so, what are some skills and experiences that you may have overlooked or you may have built in those corporate careers that you are drawing on now, but maybe use them in a different way than you did back then?
What I do now, well, as you had said at the start, right? Helping people redesign their businesses for more joy and freedom, right? There's two sides to that. There's the personal capacity side, and then there's the way the business runs and functions, right? But I only came into that understanding much later, like say 5 years ago, right? Because most people look at it as a singular thing, right? No, but the business might be functioning okay, and if your capacity to lead is diminished because you're burnt out, your health is fading, you're suffering on a relationship side, you can't lead in the best way, right? On the flip side, if you're in a decent place yourself, like you're one who stays positive, that type of stuff. But if your business is not set up well, it's always going to drain you because too much comes back to one or a few individuals in a lot of enterprises, right? So you can start at one side or the other, but the ideal thing is to really deal with both at the same time. So that's where it's different for me. I in the earlier times, I didn't understand the differentiation, right?
So, when you speak of freedom, it's really taking ownership of the decisions that you get to make and the choices that you get to make and owning those. Is that what you would describe it?
The last part you just said there is the perfect thing. And owning, right? People sometimes recognize, they see, and they don't own it, right? So I use a process that's called ARIS, ARIS. It stands for awareness and recognition, reset and redesign, right? Integration and immersion, and then sustainability and support, right? That's the process I take people through because I'm not in the business of convincing you about anything, right? I would help you recognize certain situations. If you see yourself in it, that means you're now aware, right? What choice do you make? You choosing to stay where you are, or you choosing to make a change? I can't force you to make a change, right? So everything is still driven by you. Whatever choice you make, I can help you move in the direction of that choice. If you choose to stay in the same place, there's no help you need from me, right? If you say I want to move in a different direction, then we look at what that would look like for you, right? And the options available to you. And if you're ready to start, where do we start? Right? But it's always your choice. I'm not forcing a choice on you. It's not my place, right? It's like when I used to do a lot of business plans, right? And people used to come and say, I want you to do a business plan for me. But they don't want to spend the time, right, to give you their vision. and to write down what they want and this type of stuff. I said, but it's not my business plan, it's yours, right? But a lot of times they want the business plan to get financing and then feel they run it however they want to run it, right? We both know that's not the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
But that's how people think.
So to you, and I believe this for sure for in the work that I do, is that there's a difference, a huge difference in identifying what it is that we want and actually making the decision to do it, right?
Yeah, because it's two different things. One is before the other, right? That's why, like, my second stage with reset and redesign. The reset is mental, right? If you don't change the way you think, if you don't change the way you see and frame things, right? There's no way you could move in a different direction because some days I was going to pull you back to how you're thinking, right? So you have to reset your thinking. You have to reset your. And the thing is, people always think of mindset and say mindset like it's singular. No, we have different mindsets. Everything you do in life is a mindset. You took decades to get wherever you are now. It, and because we're in an instant society, somehow or the other, you believe change happens instantly. Really, how does that stick? Even with early modern stuff we have, the only thing that sticks is that change is very constant and happening faster than it used to happen. Right? All your iPhones, all your devices, all your vehicles, all everything. Right? So you constantly know in that state of flux. It's even harder, right? To step back and try and focus on a singular change.
No, it's all instant gratification. You're right. You're right. So, speaking of something that takes a while to do, you wrote a book. It's called Freedom Conversations. So, tell us a little bit about your book.
Someone had sent me a chapter that they had contributed to a book. And when I read it, I was like, but I have a lot of this type of material and wisdom gained from other people that probably should be shared. One of the things I do is every meeting I have, I use a note taker because I don't like to take notes. I find it breaks up the flow, right? So I use a note taker and I don't only go by the summary, I use the transcripts sometimes as well. Mhm. So I engage my good friend, ChatGPT, who I call Sam as my chief chief of staff. Right? And that's literally how he views himself now, That, and I was like, let's go through all, like these meeting conversations I had and see if there's, interesting stuff to pull out of it. And there was, you know, and we came up with a 16 chapter book. And I shared the chapters with the people that I had the conversations with. And they all loved it. But the whole point about it is called a freedom conversation because it came out of conversation. And people seeing things differently, you know, having different experiences. So there are people in there who are now starting a business, people who are like 7-figure businesses, try to do it as broad as possible so that the idea I think behind it was more like you're not alone, you're not the only one. You're like 16 people going through some of the same thing that you're going through.
Right. So
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
So yeah, stop trying to do it all on your own. And when you ask me about doing things differently from before, or one of the things that as I feel strongly about the way I was able to progress to this stage, without, let's say, willingly searching, right? almost every step that I had, corporate and consulting, there was help. I didn't notice at the time. I didn't see it at the time, but I see very clearly now, right? There was always somebody putting in a good word or something that just smoothed the way, right?
Yeah.
It's not that I didn't earn it, right? Because people don't refer you if they don't trust you or if they don't think you're the little, right? But at the same time, I didn't ask them, but they did it, right?
Yep. Absolutely. I think that that is a really important piece of all of this because people, especially entrepreneurs, one of the things that I had to overcome was I can do it all myself, right? But to your point, every step of the way, somebody said something to somebody else. Somebody recommended me to somebody. Somebody saw what I was doing and wanted me to be a part of what they were doing. And so it requires other people. It requires a conversation, and it requires us to, well, let's just put it this way. We can't have a business if it weren't for other people.
And if we don't serve people in the right way, right? Because you can have the best ideas, you can have the best product, and you have crappy service, and your business will fail. We know this,
Absolutely.
all right? We have enough documented evidence of it. Right. But I also see it as just treat people the way you would like to be treated, right? If you treat people well, and I don't mean in a fake, artificial, right? If you genuinely like people and you get along with them, doors are going to open that you were not even aware was there.
Yeah.
But you have to be genuine, right?
Yeah. It goes back to what you were saying earlier. It's a choice how you treat your spouse. It's a choice how you treat your kids. It's a choice how you treat your neighbor. It's a choice, right? Same thing.
Yeah. It comes back to that almost at every level, if you think about it, right? If you go to the supermarket, everything is a choice, right?
Yeah.
And you choose whether you spend $10 here and $5 there or whatever. I mean, there's some people who don't think about it, right? Because let's say the amounts will be too small to have any effect on that. But for the majority of people, they're still fairly price conscious, right?
Mhm.
Some people are brand conscious, but if the price got to a particular point, they suddenly become price conscious. Yeah. And we making choices all the time. Somehow or the other, we've been conditioned to believe that we don't make those choices for our own life and how we want our life to look.
Yeah. Ah, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you, Andre. So, where can people get to know you better? Where can they find you?
The easiest way is to go on to the website, which is missionfreedomhq.com. Um, when they go on there, they can get a free self-assessment as one of the ways to see if your business or your career is taking too much from you, right? I mean, it's free, so why not do it?
Why not?
It's like, you know, 5 minutes maximum. And I never see the results. It's not a form, it's for you and for you only, right? So why not do it and then face your truth and then decide where you want to go, right? And then there's also in there, they could always reach out to have a conversation or anything, but the website gives a fairly clear picture of the personal capacity side, the growth and advisory side of business, of corporations. And if something resonates, feel free to have a jump on a line and have a conversation. Or they could just come back through you and you could do something for them if your audience wants that.
Wonderful. I love it. So, let me ask you this one last question. What is something that you are working on right now that you're very excited about?
I came up with a new concept, well, a different concept for me. I don't know if it's new. All right. One where, let me preface it to say that most of my stuff is high ticket, right? Because you're dealing with successful people at the business. I came up with a sort of different way to sort of ease people into the process, right? Where I had 9 courses, right? They can choose, well, yeah, so that's it. There's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 courses. You have to do 2 tier 1 courses before you get to a tier 2 course, and then before you get to a tier 3 course. So we use a credit system for it. It's being promoted in the form of a cohort, right? So that now when people join, a lot of people could be moving through the process at the same time. But the coursework is all self-paced. It's all guided self-paced, right? But you're then supported by a community, more of a peer support community, where the coaches would have access to it, but we don't really want to be too involved in it. It's like, chat among yourself, talk about what your issues are, connect, right? And then we do 2 bi-weekly support sessions where it is like a hot seat and Q&A type setup. And hopefully that could get more people to take a little step forward, without maybe the biggest step as they may perceive it. So that's it. That's kind of exciting at this point.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, as we finish up today, what is something that you would like to leave the audience with?
Exactly what we said before. Freedom is a choice. Joy is a choice. Yeah. And success should support the life that you want rather than consume it.
I think that's marvelous. Thank you so much, Andre. I truly appreciated our conversation, and you are a wealth of knowledge, and I truly appreciate your being here on Economy Creators.
I truly appreciate you having me, Mary, and you're very great hostess.
And thank you for listening. Are you an economy creator? Join me for my free Economy Creators Workshop the first week of every month. And if you're interested in being on the Economy Creators podcast and radio show here on KFred Lifestyle Optimization Radio, please reach out and apply. I can't wait to meet you.